Mgtow brothers, countrymen, lend me your ears, for I'd like to talk to you all. When you die, what will you leave behind? What will be your legacy? This is something that occupies the heads of most people, most guys. Some fathers think about their kids and it fills them with joy and on the trajectory they're in, their schooling, they're on a good path, their scholarship, whatever. Some people turn to what they do for a career. What will us Mgtow warriors leave behind? This is something that's been preoccupying me as I've been thinking a lot about Liberation Y. Liberation Y was a Mgtow warrior, and he was incredible. He really was. Liberation Y was someone who passed away on July the 10th of this year. He was only 47 years old, and he'd contracted cancer. I started watching his videos again recently, and it was tough. I'll admit, I was really moved, touched, and taken back. I couldn't believe someone so young and so vibrant and so eloquent passed like that so suddenly. He, judging from his videos and his blogs, had really transformed himself when he realized the gynocracy that we live in and how unfair and unjust it was. But he was almost liberated when his mission became to help elevate and give us a helping hand to fellow Mgtow brothers, and that was his greatest strength. His videos permeated this message, and I watched them all again, like I said recently. He talks about, so there were some that stand out, I think. One of them was about why males reject society, and he outlines how males are basically born slaves. However, Mgtow are forged in the fires of Hades, and they do this by rejecting subjugation, and they're forged via a painful, arduous journey, and only someone else abused, another depreciated male that's been abused, can understand this. The other one that reached out to me, one of his videos that really struck me, was about the failure of brotherhood, and I wholeheartedly agree about this. The problem that we find is, if you look at feminism and women, they have an own group preference, and they hold together and they stand together against us. And the thing about men is, typically we don't, and we'll compete continually, even when someone isn't a threat. That's my problem. Even when someone isn't a threat, there's no brotherly hand offered. And a lot of this is because the beta male subjugated pussies, the wimps, that is how they weasel their way around in life. They piss on others, and they don't have no loyalty to other guys, you know. But I see it in the Mgtow community, or have seen it, and I've witnessed it in popular Mgtow people, where they actually try and tread over someone else, and this is a consequence of generally of how the dominance, competitive dominance aspect of men in general. And what I say to this is, we need to use our intelligence and intellect to conquer this. More than anything else, I feel that Liberation Y was trying to find intimate male connection. And no, it's not perverted. It doesn't mean it in any perverted way. He was looking for a pure, unconditional, close camaraderie with other like-minded men. I could feel this, and you know what? I really feel I would have liked to have been his friend in real life. I think his death will have been in vain unless we carry out his last wishes, which was, and you'll see this in his videos, in his last videos, was trying to spread the word of male subjugation and Mgtow and brotherhood, and how we need to stand together. And this is for Mgtow people and producers, and how we intend to present our own interpretation of Mgtow. I certainly have my own interpretation of Mgtow, which you'll see as you watch my videos and get a flavour for it. But I do know, after watching his videos again and again, they have flavoured and changed me, and it will alter my approach. Especially the way he would really, he was articulate, but there was a certain positive pitch to the way he did things, and there was no ego or arrogance to it. It was purely for helping others. There wasn't a kind of, often you'll find couched in the Mgtow prose of certain producers, there's a like, well, I clean up pretty well, and I'm this, and I'm that. And it wasn't about that with him. Even though if you look at him, it's his pictures, he's built, and he's, you know, I'm sure there's a lot he could boast about, but you know, these videos are not about that. I'm a humble guy myself, you know, and it takes away from things. It feeds into the male dominance bullshit. Men talk to impress, women generally talk to show weakness, you know. I'm generalizing. So take a step back. How are men slaves? What are we dealing with? Well, consider this. Twice the number of your ancestors are women than men. There's more than double the number of your people, of your progenitors that are women. Think about it. I mean, how could that be? It's the truth. And how it figures is, how many men were sacrificed or fell by the wayside for us being here? They fell by the wayside of the gene pool. Women will, you very rarely hear about women that have never been with anyone or virgins. They'll, or if they are, it's out of choice. You know, you have the incel community, and again, all these Mgtow people will, and other people will laugh at them and poke fun at them. But my point is, how many incel women do you find? I think it's an impossibility almost, you know. And some people who stay true to their values and their Mgtow because they refuse to compromise, and they don't conform, and therefore they're not beta enough. How many of them died as a consequence? They died. My point is, how many of them died without leaving any offspring? That's what it comes down to when it comes to ancestors being a great number of them being women. And it also comes down to Breitholt's law, which I'm sure all of us here have come across. And just to reiterate, women are the gatekeepers of sex and reproduction. Let me be clear, there's no ambiguity there. They are the gatekeepers of sex and reproduction. There's no bullshit about that. They control, you know. They may give us, some men might think they have the illusion that it's not true, but it's true. Because 80% of women go for the top 10 to 20%. And this is documented fact from the dating sites of OkCupid, Match.com. You know, this is documented. You can look this up. And to put it into further perspective, when a woman rejects you, she's saying your genetics and DNA are not worthy of reproducing. Consider that. Consider that. Now, you can harness this, and this being the fires and the baptism of fire in Hades, and use it to become a Mgtow warrior, resilient to all this, resilient to all the challenges we have to deal with, make you stronger. That's the way I think. So, with that outline, I'd like to talk about someone else that's fallen, another fallen brother. This is someone who's personal to me. His name was Simon. And I kind of think of him as one of the initial predecessors to Mgtow, although it was many, many years before the term Mgtow existed. Simon was someone I went to university with. He was, some would say he's bitter and negative, and sometimes too much. I didn't see him that way. I saw him as a lost soul. I saw him as someone that was incredibly loyal, So loyal, in fact, that he demonstrated this by breaking the law for me several times, just to show his loyalty to me, to be and stand with me in a form of brotherhood, along with some others, against some real tosspots and assholes. To me, that is incredible because you don't find that kind of loyalty. It's very, very rare. He was someone I could console and someone who understood me. He understood many aspects of being aspirational. He drank a lot. It was obvious why he was drinking, really. It was interesting. People talk about dominant psyches, and Jordan Peterson talks about dominant psyches and serotonin levels and low status males. And at university, none of us have achieved much yet. We were still studying. Some of us were freaking slackers, and he was drinking a lot. So he wasn't by any means at the top of the dominance hierarchy. Younger, we're all young, and it was hard at the time to get women, and it was very easy to be rejected. And he, how can I put this politely, he perhaps didn't represent what some people would call traditionally handsome. But to me, that's not a negative, because it's harder, and I kind of hats off to people who are not considered mainstream good looking, because they have a harder job and they have the potential to be greater Mgtow heroes. And I see him as pretty downtrodden. If someone has done well and they're not gifted in the mainstream looks department, I think it affects women more. But with men, and they've still done really well, I think it speaks volumes to them, because they've strived and had to do well despite this. And he did later do quite well, despite all of this. Me and him became close, and we kept in contact as my career started to fledge along. We talk a lot. I moved to Germany. We talk a lot. He was fed up of England and all the crap that was going on over there, with all the authoritarian government and crap. And even when I moved to the States, I think he was somewhat envious, but we talk a lot. And this is what really hurt. In about 2009, he smashed up his Honda S2000. We're both into cars, and then he vanished. He just disappeared. He fell off the face of the planet, wouldn't respond to my emails, and I was worried about him. And a few years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, he resurfaced on social media, added me, and he was married and had a kid. And I thought, oh, well, that figures. Here we go, another one. Let's just forget about our real friends, and that hurt. However, he passed. He passed within 6 or 7 months, and he was early 40s, really young. Not quite sure exactly. I don't think it was a heart attack. I think his lungs were filling up with water. I'm not quite sure what happened. A lot of it was I found out later, it was to do with the inadequacy of the NHS and the poor quality of service, which is another reason my mum died, but let's not go there right now. And when I flew to the UK on business recently, I made a point to see his wife, Alison. So what became clear was, because he was so downtrodden, he kept pushing her away until she wore down his walls and his shields. And then he had started a new life, had a little daughter. She was barely, not even 1 when he passed. I said it was good to meet her, because I'd never met her before because of Simon. But what became clear was the reason he had stopped talking to me, and this is, you could view this as kind of rough and a bit crap, and it doesn't speak that much of him, but I don't want to dishonor his memory and what he had been loyal to me. The reason is because he was ashamed of who he was before and what he was and how negative he was, and this is a new part of his life, and he put it in a box, and I unfortunately was in that box. So it hurt a bit, but to be honest, it gave me closure, and I can accept that. And it doesn't detract away, despite of all that, what it says, it doesn't detract away from the fact that he was incredibly loyal to me, and he demonstrated this in more than just words. And I'll always remember Simon for this. And he, to me, was one of the predecessors of what we call now a Mgtow. He wasn't quite a hero, didn't have quite the virtue that we all strive to have. So with that, it's interesting to think of us Mgtow as heroes, striving, forged in the fires of Hades, and how together we're going to stand and guard our sovereignty. And as someone once said, stand with me and be free.